As the war that began this weekend between Israel and Hamas continues, the death toll on both sides continues to rise to over 2,400. Following a barrage of air attacks from both sides, Israel says fighting will intensify as military observers anticipate a potential ground offensive by Israel. Well, joining us now to give us the latest developments and his analysis of this war is Dr. James Gelvin, professor of history at UCLA and an expert on the social, cultural, and political history of the modern Middle East. Professor Gelvin, thank you again for your time today.
Thank you, Nima.
Now, let's start by clarifying what exactly the terrorist entity Hamas is, how it was conceived, and whether its actions and messaging truly resonate with or represent the people of Palestine.
Well, Hamas is a radical Islamist group. It was founded in 1987 during the first uprising, Palestinian uprising against the occupation. It took power in the Gaza Strip in 2007 and has ruled in the Gaza Strip ever since. It has not accepted the Oslo Accord, which was the mutual recognitions between the PLO and Israel. And it is not in favor of the road down which the peace agreements have been going. It wants total Israeli withdrawal from the West Bank. It wants Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, as the capital of a Palestinian state.
And how much of Hamas's messaging and actions truly resonate with the people of Palestine? We saw this huge reaction to this assault by Hamas into Israel around the world. But how much of Hamas's actions truly represent what the people of Palestine want?
We don't know. It's impossible to say. I mean, we are dealing with a government that is autocratic in the way that Arab governments are autocratic. That understanding what popular support is for that particular government is very, very difficult to assess. It looks like right now the population is cowering, as they should be, because the Israelis are about to launch a ground offensive, and they've already launched offensives from the air. So basically, the Gazans right now are living in what can be termed a disaster area. It's catastrophic, the situation right now in Gaza.
Absolutely catastrophic, sir. Now, how does this group Hamas compare to the Palestine Liberation Organization that you mentioned earlier? And where does the PLO stand when it comes to this war?
Well, Hamas and the PLO are very, very different organizations. Israel, as I said, entered into negotiations with the PLO, and the descendant of the PLO, the Palestinian Authority, now controls small pieces, actually, of the West Bank. Hamas has refused to accede to either PLO control, Palestinian Authority control, or to the protocols of the Oslo Accord. So I've always looked at Hamas and the PLO as being like a married couple on the verge of divorce. Half the time they're trying to plot how they're going to get back together again. Half the time they're trying to kill each other.
All right, sir. Now, if we go back to the attack on Saturday, one of the questions that I keep coming across is how Hamas was able to launch this massive attack on Israel on Saturday without any detection from Israel's sophisticated Iron Dome defense system. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's still a mystery. I don't know, but that's fine because the Israelis don't know either. After the surprise attack in 1973 by Egypt and Syria on Israel, there was a commission that was set up in order to analyze what went wrong in terms of intelligence. And I assume the same thing's going to happen here. Now, there's two ways in which the screw-up could have occurred. One of which was that the Israelis failed to get the information. The other of which is the Israelis failed to act on the information. And only a commission that would be appointed after this situation is over will be able to determine which it was.
All right, sir, we've got a quick 45 seconds in this segment. Let's end with why did Hamas attack Israel now? What is the strategic significance of this move?
Well, there's all sorts of reasons that have been given. The way I look at it is that Hamas is reacting to the possibility of Saudi-Israeli normalization. Historically, whenever these things occur, these operations occur, they occur for two reasons. Number one, to keep the Palestinian issue on the front burner, and number two, to sabotage any agreement that doesn't address Palestinian concerns. And both of those issues are at play right now. If Saudi Arabia and Israel normalize relations, it'll indicate that Saudis, being a very important Arab state, don't take the Palestinian issue that important anymore. They are more concentrated on their confrontation with Iran, and the Israelis would give them strategic depth in doing that. So therefore, they're more than willing to sell out the Palestinian cause, which is part of the reason why the Palestinian by Hamas has done what it's done.
Now, let's jump to Israel, Professor Gelvin. We know Israel has already warned civilians to evacuate whole neighborhoods in the Gaza Strip, and many think that this is a prelude to a ground offensive. But when could we expect something like this to come about?
Probably sooner rather than later. As soon as the Israelis get their whole force in place. I don't know. The Palestinians don't know, and that's part of the plan of the Israelis to launch an invasion to keep the other side off balance on the one hand, and I assume there's going to be hostage rescue that's going to take place during the invasion as well.
And what could this ground offensive look like if we look back at history?
Well, look at how the United States, for example, ended up in either Afghanistan or Iraq. The thing about the Gaza Strip is that it is one of the most densely occupied areas in the world. There's about 2 million inhabitants in a territory that's only 25 miles long. A large number of them are children. As a matter of fact, about 50% of the population is under the age of 18. So therefore, what we can expect is a large number of civilian casualties. Already, the homeless numbers have gone up to about 300,000 or so. And the Palestinians are trapped. The Palestinian population is trapped. They are in a war zone. They are in an active war zone, and they are fairly defensive.
Some very concerning information here, Doctor. Now, we know the former Hamas chief has called for protests in the Muslim world. So what kind of reaction have we seen from nearby countries like Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, and Egypt?
Well, there have been demonstrations, there have been protests on the street that we would assume will only get worse as the Israeli invasion unfolds. The Palestine issue, you have to understand, is extraordinarily powerful issue among Arab populations. And this, in part, is the reason why the Hamas understood full well that if they were to force the Israelis to respond by an invasion of Gaza, that the Israelis who have Israel, which has had normalization of relations with a number of Arab states, that normalization would grow cold very, very quickly.
And on that note, how do you see this war impacting the mood of potentially restoring relations between Israel and Arab countries like Saudi Arabia?
I don't think that the Saudi thing is going to progress in the near future. That's just my gut feeling on that. It's going to be very, very difficult, particularly as the damage and the civilian casualties rise in Gaza, for the Saudis to rationalize why they are, at this point, normalizing relations. The governments in the Middle East, the Arab governments in the Middle East, really wish the Palestine issue would go away. The populations in the Middle East don't wish to, or don't have the same feeling. They are very much involved in the Palestine issue. So the governments are between a rock and a hard place on this one.
And what about Western allies? What do we know so far about the role of Western and European countries amid this current conflict? Do you see this war potentially pulling in other states?
Well, it probably won't pull in other states. For example, people have floated the idea, what about Iran? And of course, it's very doubtful. The Iranians, of course, see opportunities and take their opportunities, but this is an existential question for the Israelis. And so therefore, the Iranians probably know to back off on this one. In terms of the Europeans and the Americans, the attitude has been 100% backing of Israel. That very possibly will drop away as civilian casualties mount and as the horrific conditions in the Gaza Strip become better known.
All right, Doctor, just a quick 1 minute left here. But if we look back at history, how do you see this war playing out? And do you see another shift in the geography of the region following this war?
I don't see a shift in the geography of the region at all. There is no deterrence that Israel has. Israeli deterrence works against countries. It works against Egypt. It works against Iran. It works against anybody that might attack it as a country. But against these various groups like Hezbollah in the north in Lebanon or Hamas in the Gaza, it doesn't work at all. So there's very little potential for this to really change the geography. The solution here is not going to be a military solution. The solution here is going to be a political solution. And that's the only way that this whole crisis will come to an end.
All right, lots to keep our eyes out for. Dr. Gelvin, thank you again for your time today.
You're welcome.